It is 6 o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order. First thing, roll call.
Nyla Fry. Here. Trisha Brown.
Here.
Sam Kaufman.
Here.
Kristen Runge.
Here.
Aaron Moran. Joe Sitzelsberger. And Robert McPherson.
All right, confirmation of open meeting compliance.
I can confirm that the draft agenda was published in the Waunakee Tribune on 8/4. The final agenda was posted in all three official posting locations on 8/2 and 8/3. And the final packet and agenda were made available online on 8/3. Two important notices for the audience. Please be sure you sign in for accurate record keeping with your name, address, and municipality. And then those interested in participating in public comment, please fill out the portion of the public comment form and hand it to me prior to the agenda item.
All right, next up is public comment. Do we have any public comments?
We have two. RJ Bindal at 1411 Blue Ridge Trail.
So I want to.
Yeah, we'll have to have you go up to the podium and use the microphone.
Sure. So hi, before I go on, I want to speak on Don's item coming up for Kilkenny Farms West. Is now the time to talk or should I wait for that? Okay, just here to do two things. One, support Don and the team. Beautiful project. They're going to be great neighbors. My name is RJ Banal and I'm with the First Presbyterian Church of Waunakee. I'm the buildings and grounds elder. So here representing the church tonight. So again, great project coming up and we're looking forward to having Don as a neighbor. But secondarily, I'm here because when we came before the planning committee and we were here talking about this, we were originally concerned about our easement that we have for access to the church via Highway Q. And during the conversation, the engineering team was going to note the easement on the final plat. The final plat that's posted to your website has does not have that notation. So I understand there might be some outstanding issues, just trying to understand how that gets, even it doesn't look like it's on the agenda tonight. How does that get noted in the future when they finally, because I'm sure they're going to catch up on that and do that. But how do we see that once it's done is the question for us. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Any other public comments?
We have Linda Ashmore at 114 South Street, Waunakee.
I have two public comments. One is dealing with a longstanding practice that seems to have changed, and I'd like it to go back to the way it was. The practice was that if you were having a public hearing, say on a TIF, a conditional use permit, or on a rezone, that it would go through the planning commission and then up to the village board. So you have public hearings at both levels. And there's two reasons for that. The first one is that the legal notice is like a 6-point font buried in the Tribune. So people don't really see it the first time around. So they'll find out about it. And I'm asking for the same thing with the CDA. They'll find out about it when it comes to the CDA or the Plan Commission. The second reason is that you are elected officials. The CDA and the Plan Commission have village board members on it, but they're not all elected officials. So if you're making decisions about how Waunakee is going to grow and how we're going to spend money, I think that you should hear from the citizens at this level too. The other issue is about the last, the last CDA meeting. The CDA meeting went into closed session for almost an hour. When the CDA was created, Chris Zellner assured village board members when they created it, that there wasn't going to be any eminent domain talk. There wasn't going to be any talk of blight. And then to have that talk and then go into 1 hour closed session is just wrong, in my opinion. I just think that it should be very transparent. If you're going to be looking at condemning properties anywhere, you should list what those properties are. And their excuse that, well, maybe somebody a bit higher, just doesn't cut it with me. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other public comments?
I don't see any.
All right. All right, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they would like to have pulled from the consent agenda?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes. Next up are committee reports, Parks and Rec.
We had no meeting this month.
All right. Public Works.
Okay, we met on August 3rd. There's many projects going out sorry about that. We met on August 3rd. There are many projects that are moving right along, and some projects have been completed. We talked about the work that needs to be done over by the school because of the project that they're doing there, and we're working on that. There's a terrace tree program that is coming up where terrace trees can be planted, and Jeff Carls from Public Works has worked on that. And I appreciate all the work that him and everybody who's helped with that has done. We discussed other upcoming projects, and this year has been a busy year for Public Works, but just to give you a heads up, next year will probably be busier, so.
All right, and next up, Finance Committee, that would be me. We met last month. We welcomed a new member, Tom Wilson. We went over preparations for our meeting. I should know better. I had my finger on the button and everything. So we met last month. We welcomed a new member, Tom Wilson. We went over preparations for our September, October meeting, which is scheduled for Renee. Would you remind me which date again?
The October meeting.
Thank you. Yeah.
The October 17th, I believe, the second Monday of the month.
All right. Thank
It
you.
will be combined with the village board meeting.
All right. So we will meet as one.
Oh, sorry,
Third
third
week?
Monday, I mean.
Third Monday. All right, excellent. So we are getting prepared for that. And next up, Waunakee Fire District.
Waunakee Fire District met on July 31st. We have received car 2, which will be a command car. That's coming in very handy. We are looking at ordering a squad 5. They're telling us that once it's ordered, it'll take 27 to 33 months to receive it. So we're trying to get that coordinated. The day room remodel is moving along. The painting is done. And we are also beginning the budgeting process. Thank you.
Excellent. Do we have any other committees, boards, or commissions? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the next items. Number 1 is discuss and take action on the new 2024 full-time police officer position. It's page 43 of your agenda packet for those that are following along. And to you, Adam.
All right, so I had a 2024 added police officer position for the budget or my budget requests, and kind of a little unorthodox here before you guys tonight to ask for essentially pre-approval for that position. There's a number of challenges all over every profession to hire good staff. And one particular one for law enforcement right now is the majority of people that we're hiring, not all, require the law enforcement academy. And there's requirements that need to happen in order to get those people in the academy. So we opened up a hiring process after Lieutenant Bartles retired, and we were before the police commission last week. We have 3 strong candidates, which is pretty unheard of for, I think we had 12 to 14 applicants. So basically, if we don't get them to an academy in January, it would be the middle of next year before we get them to an academy. They wouldn't be able to help us until the end of next year. If we had to wait until fall of next year to get them to an academy, it would be 2025 before they're able to help us. So those hiring challenges they kind of weigh on a department. You know, for example, right now we have 2 people on light duty and we're short an officer. You know, if we were waiting for these positions, if people were to leave, because we're seeing a lot of that in our profession as well, people jumping ship. We've been very fortunate that that has not helped or happened to us yet, one time in the last 10 years, but at any time it really could. It's important for us to kind of keep up on the staffing. I do have an attachment that shows kind of our justification for the position. I won't bore you guys with all the details, but a lot of it, if you go to that last chart on page 49, some of the things to pay attention to is officers per 1,000. You can see we're at this 1.49. Most places our size are 1.7 or 1.8. So part of that is just keeping up with our growth. We're not adding to services. We're basically just trying to stay afloat. And if you kind of throw all that together with a new, employees, work-life balance, not trying to burn out the current staff that we have, it's important to keep up with the growth in the village. And that's where this request comes from. But the biggest challenge really is the way that we're hiring. 2 out of the 3 candidates that we have need the academy. And in order to move on with our process, which would be conditional job offers, psychological evaluations, if we have to wait until November when the normal budget is signed, we would not make it to the January academy just on that timeline. So very unorthodox request this time, I understand, but we are in some very unusual times for our profession as well, and trying to keep up. So I had some conversations with Todd, and he can elaborate more about some shared revenue that's coming in and the reason, the use for that shared revenue. And we thought it would be a good opportunity to come and talk to you today.
Yeah, Chief and I collectively support the proposal. Normally, I probably would have a challenge supporting a proposal like this as it preempts your budget decision-making, and the circumstance wouldn't then have its chance to present itself along with the other pressures on the organization as a whole. But this is a particularly unique year with the approval of increase in supplemental state aid. So we're going to be having $370 or so $1,000 increase in our aid, although, and that's known certainty. But the state also put stipulations on that increased aid that it can only be used for certain purposes, one of which is protective services. So because of that limitation, I think it puts you, the board, in a better position to say, we're willing to essentially designate about a third, $111,000 of that new supplemental aid for this position before considering the rest of the budget. If not for that, this would be a more challenging discussion and decision point, but I think we're in a unique opportunistic moment, and I would support the recommendation, the request.
And if I can just add to that, I mean, our approach in the past when we're in a situation like this has been, we would hire the one person and we would, for lack of a better word, try to drag the other person along, saying like, hey, we're pretty confident, we feel pretty good about the position, things like that. Those things aren't happening anymore. Same with, hey, we'll get you going part-time, and then this full-time spot we're expecting. Those things aren't happening anymore. These are all candidates that I assure you will be hired very quickly in any other department, and we're fortunate to have this candidate pool. Even my police commission, who has been interviewing people quite regularly over the last couple of years, said this was one of the stronger pools that we've seen in a while, and part of the reason for the request as well.
Excellent. So you have 3 good candidates, and asking one we've already approved for hire and asking for the second.
Yeah, one is backfilling the open position we have right now, basically asking for pre-approval to hire the second or start the process. It's not going to cost the village any money in 2023. We're basically just saying, yes, we have a position, so we can give you a conditional offer, so we can go through the rest of the steps of our hiring process and make sure that we meet the requirements for the police academy as well. They have to do a physical agility and paperwork in order to get in and be ready to go in January.
Okay. Thank you.
Even with the academy that starts in January, we just had somebody that went through the academy this year in January, and they literally just got off of field training last week. So even with that, they're still not helping our schedule until August of next year. So it's just a very long time frame to wait.
Yeah. All right. Questions? Nyla?
I just have a comment. I've been serving on the police committee for quite some time. And I've seen Adam work very hard to make sure that everything's staffed and working as smoothly as it can work. Many times he'll think he's set, and then there'll be a medical leave, or somebody will decide to move on, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's necessary to do this at this time so that we will have adequate staff to take care of the needs of the village now and into the future, hopefully.
Thanks, Nyla.
Any other questions or comments?
Maybe more of a comment. In speaking with Chief when I first started, as well as all of the other department heads, it seemed very clear and consistent that the departments really work together in long-range planning and knowing where needs will be and when they will. So just confirming with Todd, this is not something that is necessarily a surprise. It was probably projected in their forecast.
I'm willing to let Chief address that. I think it was probably a year ago when the position that the police department had requested was it 2025?
Yep. Yeah, originally it was going to be in 2025. We actually had some conversations last year at the police committee level when I was talking about adding my budget request for last year. Our patrol division is essentially unique in that there's two rotations essentially. When one group is working, the other group is off. So when we add a position to our patrol division, we help over here and then this side stays the same. We had conversations at the committee level about whether or not we should have asked for 2 positions last year. At that time, we were backfilling, I believe, a retirement and somebody who had left our agency for a promotional job somewhere else, which we're thankful again that we don't see that very often, but understood that circumstance. At that time, I thought 3 people in 1 year was hard, and it did prove to be hard. We had to run 3 processes last year to fill all 3 of those positions. So because of that, I didn't want to come in and ask for 2 last year to help that part along. I thought we could postpone it a year to come back for the second one now. Yep.
Any others? Sam?
No, we've certainly talked about this position at the police committee for some time and we need to catch up. So it certainly has my support.
Excellent. And I thank you for providing all of the information and the details in the packet. It was really clearly laid out, very easy to understand, and a really good rationale. So very much appreciated, Chief.
Thank you.
All right. So do we have a motion?
I move to approve the creation of a new police officer position for 2024 with funding allocated from the village's supplemental municipal aid and authorize immediate hiring procedures for the position.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much, Chief Kreitzman. All right, excellent. Oh, those are the best phone calls to make. All right, next item on the agenda, discuss and take action on proposed scope of work for village attorney services related to ordinance updates for licensing and permitting, page 51 of your packet. And I believe that's to you, Carla, Todd?
Yep,
Brian?
between Brian and I was
All
gonna
right.
let Brian.
Sure, I think, and I think you've seen this at the village board level with, there's been additional questions from the board on certain licensing and permitting issues. And as a result of that, Carla and her team have been looking at a number of issues, including kind of calling me in for certain meetings up to this point. And I think we finally got to a point where it's like, a lot of these code provisions are pretty old, maybe 40, 50 years old. They don't necessarily match how the village staff and village board would like to move forward, and including maybe the applicants too, whether it be transient merchant issues, farmers market and other special events. And so the thought process is, as opposed to just doing this piecemeal, to try to sit down and look at these items collectively and make some wholesale changes to the ordinances. If you look at the scope of work, it's anticipated there's going to be multiple meetings that would come before the village board for these proposed changes. Potentially go to committee meetings too. That would be up to you. If we haven't necessarily done that before with ordinances that I can recall, but it's certainly something the village can do. But again, it's more of these issues have been creeping up, and then I think the other thing, like we noticed when we were working on the HTL picnic license, well, there's some language in parks language that kind of relates back to the licensing, and it's figuring out a way to make all of this work together, because again, a lot of these ordinances are pretty old.
All right, any questions or comments? No. Seeing none. Nyla, did you have one? Okay, seeing none, I will make the motion to approve the scope of work for the village attorney services related to the ordinance updates for licensing and permitting at a cost not to exceed $10,000, and to authorize the use of proceeds from the issuance of reserve liquor licenses to fund the project.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, and thank you for keeping an eye on the ordinances, making sure we've got good policy. Next on the agenda, discuss and take action on bids and conveyance documents for the Simon Crestway extension work. That's page 77 in your packet. And is that Tim?
Three.
skip number 3.
Did I skip number? I'm sorry. Discuss and take action on awarding contracts for Village Hall remodeling and related IT upgrades and facility security systems on page 54. I'm moving too fast today.
That's right.
All right.
Last time you all talked about this project is when you authorized village staff to proceed with CBI to prep and issue bids for the continuance, essentially of what we did in the boardroom, just to provide some upgrades and improvements throughout the rest of the first floor of this building. We've actually expanded the scope of that work slightly to include the restrooms downstairs, the public restrooms downstairs. I don't know if you've been in those lately, but they're due. So we have issued the bids. We had one bidder. That information is included in your packet. We believe those proposals were near the engineering estimate, if not, I think just slightly less, right, Bill? Correct. The other elements of the improvements that we're proposing would include new furniture for the workspaces. That includes all of the cubicle walls. I think they call them workstation walls. Includes everything from to chairs, desks, their rollaway, hiding drawers and such. Safety improvements will also be included. That'll involve a public reception area that has updated security controls, lock control door access, or a button controlled door access, as well as security glass at the reception spaces. We're also including camera controls. We're looking at 4 security cameras for installation, 1 in the lobby, and then 3 in the exteriors, the front door, the staff side door, and then essentially at the corner of the building, looking towards the roundabout to look at the whole front facade of the building facing that direction. And then we have some IT system improvements that really just simply go along with these improvements. That would include cable runs and the line drops that relate to the space improvements, in addition to Wi-Fi, strengthening the Wi-Fi signal and duplicating our internet run with a second provider. Did I say that right, Jared? So those would be the series of, collectively, the series of projects that comes in, not a planned outcome, but we had a balance remaining in the fund from the sale of village-owned land. Trying to look at my, just around $486,000 was remaining in that fund. And together, all of these improvements comes in $5,000 under that total remaining balance. For a little history lesson, we had reserved that balance at one time with a thought that we would use it to modify the old library to become a new village hall. Instead, we're using it to upgrade our village hall to stay village hall. So we're pleased that the numbers came in as they did, and we're looking for your approvals to move forward with the project.
All right.
Recommendation is in your packet.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Nyla?
Previously, when we authorized, looking at this project, I asked if any of the furniture would be reused, and the answer was yes, some of it would be. And I just want to verify that some of it is being reused.
Yep, to the extent we can reuse furniture in offices, we are. I think we looked at, well, there are several offices where we're retaining furniture. The majority of it is going to involve replacement. So I think Bill's a lucky one with although his office is, that's a relatively new office. We added that probably 6 years ago, maybe.
Sounds about right.
And had new furniture then. The reason most of the offices are seeing new furniture is because there's technologies that will really benefit the workspace. We'll outfit every office with a height adjustable desk. So that's an example of why a majority of these are being modified and replaced.
Okay, thank you.
But Bill, did you want to touch base on what we are saving?
Nope, I mean, you pretty much hit on all. I mean, obviously the stuff that won't be reused, we'll obviously try to auction off or send to a surplus place to get rid of.
Other questions or comments?
Do we have a rough ETA for completion?
I believe they were looking December, early
December, yeah,
December.
probably by the first of the year, yeah.
question, just from a practical standpoint, what happens to everybody when they're doing the renovation?
It's a good question. The way we bid this was to ask them to perform the work in as best possible in 2 phases. Kind of front of house, the lobby area, and then back of house. The good news is we became pretty good at being a more mobile workforce through the pandemic. I think there'll be some circumstances where for effectiveness, staff may be looking to work remote or work in the lower level of this building as opposed to their offices when there's too much distraction. So that we will be doing some juggling and some creative workspace uses. And we did include in the bid a request for there to be a 2-phase approach so we can sort of slide back and forth as best possible.
All right. Anything else? All right.
I move to approve the award to the Village Hall renovation project to CBI in the amount of $295,275 and authorize staff to proceed with purchasing of furnishings, security systems and IT systems at a total project cost not to exceed $486,772. Can't talk tonight.
And I second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, now on to number 4. Thank you very much, by the way. Discuss and take action on bids and conveyance documents for Simon Crestway extension work. That's page 77 of your packet.
So yeah, this was one of the items we had at the Public Works meeting last week. We sent out the Simon Crestway extension project for bid. Our bids came back actually pretty dang close to our projections. And at that time, we were looking for the awarding this to Parisi, which was our low bidder. This whole project though goes back to the tasting room when that was done in 2000, was it Tim 12? 9/12/22. Part of that was also the was on conditional use of the public improvements. So this is just to kind of finalize that part of this project.
Excellent. Any questions on it? Nyla?
I'm wondering, it says that it'll be eligible for public improvements in the TID project plan and will be funded by TID 6. Is there any other way of funding that?
Not that I'm aware of at this time.
Okay.
All right, other questions?
Just one, the bids where they seem close, there's a pretty big difference between the first and the third bidder. Any rationale or reasons that you just want to make sure we didn't miss something or?
Not that we're aware of. We reviewed it all and everything seemed to be.
Other questions? None? All right, do we have a motion?
I will. I move to award Parisi Construction in the amount of $450,000 for, I shouldn't pick these hard ones with the numbers in them. $450,449.75 for the construction and installation of public improvements associated with the extension of Simon Crestway in 2023, along with the task order for staking from Verbecker in the amount of $10,000.
Second.
All right, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, number 5, discuss and take action on final plat for Kilkenny Farms West, page 107 of your packet. Is that Tim?
That is,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Kristen. So I have no materials to share, but just to point out, the materials are found beginning on page 107 of the packet. This is the final plat for the Kilkenny Farms West subdivision. It is in general conformance with the previously approved preliminary plat. 281 residential lots, 40 outlots, 2 commercial lots, 1 mixed use lot. There are a few things still outstanding with the final plat. That's why the final iteration has not been included. What was included in the packet, however, that begins on page 109 are the developer and their engineering team's comments related to all of the information provided by staff and its consultant regarding the preliminary plat. And if you've had an opportunity to read through those, most of those have been agreed upon. However, there's a couple outstanding things. And as an example, one would be, we haven't fully vetted all the street names. So there's a few things that need to be checked off there. Our engineering consulting team has been in communication with theirs regarding the needs of the TIA, traffic impact analysis. There's a couple minor things there. And then as one of the speakers noted this evening, RJ had contacted me about the easement document associated with the church. A note would be added to the final plat. So there are a few things associated with that before that plat would be in a final iteration that would be ready for signature by the village. So in addition to staff recommending approval, approval of a development agreement will be needed prior to commencement of land disturbing activities and installation of public improvements.
What questions do we have?
I have lots of them. Okay, some of these things may have been taken care of, but when I went through this, I had a lot of questions. I don't think we have enough time tonight to go through all of them. But on page 113, it talks about lots 19 through 23, 34 through 40, 66 through 69, and it lists all these things have first floor elevations above 960 mean sea level MSL and therefore may have deficit water pressure to serve the property. Strand recommends that it is noted on the final plat that these lots will require privately owned facilities to boost the water pressure to adequate levels. I guess that gives me pause because for one thing, I think we've already ran into situations where things are shown wherever in the contract or the plats, or I don't know the terms and the definitions for all this. And many people don't read those and they don't understand what they're getting into. And so this really kind of threw me that somebody may purchase a house and it may be a very expensive house and they may not have adequate water pressure. That's an example of one of many things that I've looked at. And so I'm wondering, what is the usual protocol? Do we leave it to the economic developer and the engineer? Or I would feel more comfortable if all these things were revised and taken care of. And then I believe if anybody has any questions about something that was supposed to appear on the plans that isn't appearing on the plans. I have a lot of questions like on page 116, they talk about the clearance above the sewer service to the water main for pipe 115. It says clearance will be provided. When that says clearance will be provided, how is it going to be provided? If it's not in the plans, I don't feel that, perhaps, Tim, I'm wrong, but maybe these have been resolved and I don't know it. But I have all these questions about how's this going to be done? Is this going to be done before the project starts? I don't know. I don't know how it's usually done. So that's what I'm asking.
Sure. Short answer is yes, they will be done before the project plan or before the project starts because they have to. And so our engineer working with our consulting engineer along with the developer's engineer will make sure that those updated plans address all of those things. And the comments in red essentially are the developer agreeing to, yes, these things will be taken care of. And so from my perspective, while we don't have the finished product per se, I am confident that finished product will be provided and signed off on by our consulting engineer and our village engineer, as has been the case for many years.
Okay, so my other question is it listed anywhere on here about the Presbyterian Church? Is that listed in any of this?
Not specifically, but in my notes and my records, I have that is included in there, that sentiment. But if I may on that one, it's more than just a sentiment, because even if, for example, that note isn't added, at the plan commission meeting, the applicant did provide the actual recorded easement document that ensures in perpetuity that easement. And if the notation is not on the plat, the document is still recorded with the Dane County Register of Deeds that assures that. So, but anyway, long answer to yes, it's in my notes.
Okay, so if I vote for this, I'm doing it thinking that all these requirements are met and that they're being done in a correct way. So how much is the village board responsible if something is missed in the plans or whatever, and all these things aren't taken care of?
Well, I would say the village is if the plans don't meet the code and aren't constructed per the code, and we were aware of that and it happened, then we potentially could be held liable, not the village board itself, but the village. That's how it is with every project. So let's say that you had a plat that came to you that had no comments because it was in final form and everything looked good. And then all of a sudden it gets developed and doesn't get developed in conformance with the plans or with the plat. And we're aware of that, then that's problematic. If we're not aware of it, it wouldn't be the village that would be held liable. It would be one of the contractors or the developer that worked on the project. But yeah, I mean, I would say this, good, bad, or indifferent. The village has had conditional approvals of final plats for the last 30 years. All municipalities do that. As a village board, you always have the ability to say, you know, oh, there's only a few things, so I want to conditionally approve it, or, oh, there's too much out there. I want some of this stuff tied up before it comes back to me. That's your decision-making process. But if you do approve it tonight, I would say nothing really changes at the staff level or from a liability standpoint. We're still going to have to look out for it the same way that we would have to, even if everything was tied up when it came to you.
All right, questions answered, Nyla?
I guess I am very uncomfortable with what I stated pertaining to putting something in the final plat or whatever pertaining to the water pressure, and I would like something worked out pertaining to that, so homeowners don't end up with homes that don't have adequate water pressure. Oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't done. I will say it again. I would like to see it so that we aren't putting information in plats for future homeowners that basically take the responsibility off us or the developer or the builder, saying that they aren't going to have adequate water pressure. To me, that's an issue that should be taken care of before it even comes to here. That's just my opinion. So I would like to see us ask that more work be done on this and these issues be taken care of before we approve this. That's just my feeling. Because if I was buying my first home or my second home and I didn't know much about it, which I wouldn't have until I was on this board, and that came out at me after I purchased a house, that would really make me angry. And I'd be coming back yelling and screaming, and I wouldn't even know who to come to.
So let me ask a clarifying question of Tim, and possibly, can I ask Don? That's an internal pump in a house to increase the water pressure. Am I correct? It's a booster pump. When we say a privately owned facility, we're not talking about like a privately constructed water tower or anything. We're talking about a plumbing schematic in the house that increases water pressure.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and if you constructed a house on a hill, that's a pretty standard piece of equipment.
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah. We've had to do that in some of our places just because we're above the water table, or significantly above the water table.
And I would add that the utility has also discussed putting a space for some more water storage in this development. So that should take care of the issue.
So then my question is, is this taken care of before the house is built by the construction company? Or how is this happen? I mean, if I bought one of these lots and was going to build a home, who would tell me that this needs to be done?
I'm assuming Don is gonna take care of that before they buy lots.
Hey, Jerry, we
Oh,
won't
sorry.
be picking you up on the audio. So if you, oh, look at that. Have my, Kristen.
All right, thank you. Matt Schreiber
Brian?
with,
I'm
Just
sorry.
on a notice standpoint, we have on rare occasions, but every once in a while, and I think Arboretum Village is one of them.
Hmm.
If there's a specific issue that you want called out, so that a potential purchaser of property is going to notice it and not have to read the plat, we do have the ability to essentially address this issue through just recording a document that
Okay.
makes the purchaser. So I believe that for Arboretum Village, we had some form of a notice, because it wasn't a restriction in any way, shape or form. And this would not be a restriction. It's a notice to the purchaser. I think for Arboretum Village, it was just, hey, there's a light industrial park that's about a block away from you. So be aware of that. We'd have the ability to maybe do the same thing here, if that would give you more comfort from a standpoint of making sure that the potential purchaser knows.
Okay, where would that go? Would the real estate person be aware of that? Who's responsible for getting that information out so people actually see it and read it?
Well, we would record, it would be a requirement that it be recorded on the property. And so I would hope that every real estate agent, I mean, if you're a real estate agent and you're not looking at what's recorded on the property, you probably shouldn't be a real estate agent. I mean, that's, sorry, getting on my soapbox, but,
But
so,
hopefully you would-
yeah, in other words, if I'm a potential purchaser and I have a real estate agent working for me, and then I'm looking at one of these lots, they should flag that for the potential purchaser if there's a specific notice that's placed on, recorded on the property.
All right. Is it just an internal pump in the house that we're talking about?
it is an internal pump in the house. The price for the pump is around $2,000. And the way we've done this in other subdivisions in the past. So just so we're clear, we're not talking about life safety issues, the fire flow, the pressure in the hydrants and in the entire subdivision will meet and exceed the state's requirements for fire flow. So that's not what we're talking about. What will happen is there'll be a note on the plat. The Tierney's will let the home buyer know that this particular lot will need a booster in the building in order to ensure that you have adequate pressure. And then in addition to that happening, the plumber for the home itself will be getting the pressure from the existing municipal system. We'll design the infrastructure for the house. And at that time, they'll let them know, hey, we're going to need a booster in your house. If they're not aware of it, that will be when they'll find out. And again, the cost is around $2,000 for that equipment. So, big picture, this is something that Tierney's will make all of their lot owners aware of. They're not in the business of having unhappy homeowners. So
Thank you for clarifying that.
All right. Other questions or comments?
No, maybe just for Tim, I think my first reaction when looking through this, and reviewing it was that there seemed to be a lot of detail that was on the onus of Tim, the engineer, to confirm. Also recognizing that a lot of this information is not something that I know I don't have insight in necessarily into design and development standards to this degree. So we rely on their expertise and input anyway. I guess Tim, if there's anything in here that one is more subjective or feels like it might be just a lot to have as far as your review, if there's something that you want us to call out or talk about further, I think.
I really don't. I would say this is the reason why many smaller communities have consulting firms, engineering consulting firms with an array of staff. Most of the comments that have been provided are quite technical, as whether it's an elevation of 960, for example, or a certain separation of a sanitary pipe. Those are the kinds of things we'll be relying on our engineering consulting firm along with our engineering staff to ensure that those standards are met. So I'm in terms of what's outstanding, things like street names, we'll have to work with the developer on the final list of those. And that is a little more subjective. We I mean, I feel very comfortable that that could be resolved.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Sam, did you have anything?
No, I don't have any concern with it. I think it looks very nice.
All right. Do we have a motion? Oh, Nyla, another? No, okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the final plat for the Kilkenny Farms West development, subject to final approval by the Community Development Director and Village Engineer.
Second,
I'll second that.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. On to item number 6, and thank you for the clarification. Discuss and take action on process for consideration of an amendment to TID number 6, Kilkenny Farms, for the inclusion of additional public improvements and territory on the west side of Century Avenue, page 133 of your packet, and that is you, Tim.
Thank you very much. So this is, let me share my screen and bear with me just one moment. There we go. So this request is somewhat similar to a request that came before this body a few months ago, and it's really a process question to go in a certain direction. And in this specific instance, this is a question that the applicant is asking to move forward with a process for the amendment to TID 6. So what you're looking at on the screen right now is a map, the area in yellow shown on the east side of Century Avenue or County Q is the current boundary for TIF District number 6. So in this case, the applicant is asking to amend the project plan and expand the boundary to that area shown in pink. So when the project plan for TID 6 was created in 2015, some of the public improvements that were listed there were fairly narrow in focus and scope. And so a possibility could have been under statutes with our public improvements within a half mile of given TID could fall under the existing project plan. However, because of the way it was worded, it's such that it's limiting. So the applicant is now saying, we need help with some of the cost of public improvements in this area. And therefore we are asking the village board to move forward with the process. Keep in mind, they're not asking for you to approve the amendment. This is merely to move forward with the process. And so like you may recall with the newcomer project that is seeking to amend TID 9, this would be a process to move forward with the process that would amend TID 6. The applicant, I'm fairly certain, has been involved in creation and amendment of TID districts. And here in the village, an escrow would be needed to move forward with that process to cover the costs associated with working with our financial consultant and our attorney on any development agreements, should the village board decide to grant the amendment to the TID. So it's again, the ask is fairly simple. Obviously, the ball would be in your court in terms of yes or no to moving forward with the process. I'm just going to move forward with one page. This information is included in the packet, by the way. What you're seeing on the map or on the screen right now is a map that's included in the packet that outlines those public improvements in the area, what is currently northwest of TID 6 area along Woodland Drive, part of Century Avenue, and then some of the street infrastructure that would be within the final plat of Kilkenny Farms, which we just discussed. So I don't know, that's really the overview. The discussion, now goes before you, and I don't know if the developer is here. If they have any other information, I would direct questions toward them. And I don't know if Todd or Brian have anything to add.
I did just want to add, I know the board is familiar with this, but for those who might be watching or listening that aren't familiar with the steps in a process to consider modifying or creating a TIF district. A process would involve creating a more elaborate project plan that would lay out the projects and potential values that could be created. And that process then involves creation of a joint review board and meetings before the joint review board, which involves representatives from the different taxing jurisdictions. It then also involves the village's community development authority with final action before the village board itself. And that action then is to consider whether to approve or not an amendment to the district. So I just want to lay out really for the public watching, or those who might not be aware of the process, what's involved, should the board authorize us to take the steps in initiating the process.
So to be clear, this is not, we are not saying yes to a TID or a TIF. We are just kind of saying we'll look into it at this point.
This is affording a process to an applicant, a requester, in this case, the Tierney's, to consider the potential for an amendment.
All right.
It does not approve the amendment. It carries out the process for you and the other bodies I mentioned to consider it, yes or no.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So what questions do we have? None? All right. No questions? Okay, I will make the motion then to assign to the Community Development Authority the task of conducting a TID amendment process that will amend the boundary and project plan for TID number 6 and authorize the village administrator to engage Ehlers and Associates for providing TID coordination service. This action should be made contingent on the applicant signing the cost recovery agreement and placing in escrow an appropriate sum as determined by the village administrator.
I'll second that.
Do we have any discussion on the motion? I have discussion on the motion. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we had a comment sent in from Robert, who is not able to be here tonight, and you were going to read that. And then I think we may have discussion on the motion after that.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
I did.
Thank you. Okay, so this says, hello, fellow trustees. Unfortunately, I am unable to attend tonight's meeting as I'm out of state on a long ago planned vacation. However, I wanted to make comment on the agenda item regarding extension of the tax incremental District 6 to cover the Kilkenny expansion to the west of Highway Q. As some of you may remember from early 2019, when the village was working through approvals for a potential TID to cover what is now known as Woodland Crest, there was a meeting in which developers from both sides of Highway Q made it clear that ultimately there would be no need for government assistance to complete their infrastructure improvements. This meeting was important because Waunakee, which was and still is sorely lacking a second choice for a full service grocer, now potentially had 2 grocery stores willing to open within the village. Unfortunately, we are now over 4.5 years from that meeting and still have not seen development of a grocer on either side of the road. While I am sure that the developer will make compelling arguments as to why they now need these funds, I strongly urge my fellow trustees to consider that this is a problem of the developer's own making. The resulting 2019 meeting saw no development action from the petitioner, and as they chose to work on other projects within the village instead, that they now have decided that they need to seek public assistance funding does not pass any smell test, as the development across the highway, which is of reasonable similar design, had seen steady development and occupancy for each site despite the challenges of the pandemic. There is also the matter of the existing TID 6 design. The original 2015 plan placed first and foremost in its projections one grocery, which has never been realized. The ask now states that the extension of TID 6 will draw higher value commercial uses that the village would otherwise be able to attract. Yet we have not seen that fully realized in the existing TID 6 boundaries. Additionally, one can argue that we have attracted higher value commercial uses in the adjacent development of Woodland Crest, which again did not ultimately require a TID to be created. In closing, I strongly urge you, my fellow trustees, to let the free market bear the costs of this development. With recent development within the village that did not require tax incremental financing, with the demand for business within the village, and with the history that we have seen of development in this area, it is not a deal we have to subsidize to see growth. Please vote against this request and cease the usage of public funds to fund private enterprises. Thank you, Robert McPherson, trustee.
All right. Thank you for reading that. So I have a couple comments against that, well, a couple of comments. I think that everyone that comes before our board, every developer that seeks TID financing deserves to go through a fair process. We're not being asked right now to approve. We're not being asked to evaluate a but-for test that hasn't been conducted at this point in time. I think that to vote no against allowing a fair process to move forward would be preemptive and not necessarily justified. I, along with everybody else, would love to have a grocery store in Waunakee, a second grocery store, although I love Piggly Wiggly. I cannot see holding future development hostage until the current owner of the lot that was supposed to be a grocery store makes good on their business plan. They have the right as a business to decide when and how they build that grocery store, and the infrastructure improvements we need to move forward as a community shouldn't be contingent on their actions. I think that, ultimately, this is a fair request from a developer. The improvements are needed. They'll be used by the village. That road is going to continue to be used at ever higher rates as we grow as a village, whether it's in the adjacent homes that will be using that road, or those of us that are going to and from the downtown or the new business development. So I appreciate Robert's opinion and his difference in opinion to mine, but I think that we need to afford this developer a fair process and allow him to have, or them to have, the consideration that we give other developers.
Is it okay if I add to that, Kristen? And I think the reason I echo that and support moving forward with this process is that for commercial components in a residential area, that is, in my experience, an extra burden on the developer, especially if you're holding them to a higher set of standards, whether it's the retail composition or just the aesthetics and the additional investment that's made to make it look like a gateway into the community. So not knowing any of that, because this is simply the request to start the process at this point, I think it's fair to explore like what are the challenges and what will the needs be to have that corner section stay commercial multi-use zoning.
Thank you. Any other comments? Nyla? No? Sam? No? All right, so there's a motion on the floor. There's been a second. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
2-2. What do we do in this situation?
It doesn't move forward at this point.
Okay, can it come up for reconsideration at another meeting?
It can.
Okay, all right.
Can you clarify that process for reconsideration, Brian, just so the board's aware?
I'd have to take a look at our code to every municipality is a little bit different. This isn't like a zoning request or a conditional use permit. So my belief is this is going to be entirely within the village board's discretion. Just have to look at the code to see if there's any limiting language.
All right. All right, that is the last item on our agenda. And so I guess I'm looking for, go ahead. Bill.
Sorry to interrupt. My apologies. I forgot on my line there, I missed 2 items on there, is to also accept the outlot 16 in that motion.
So I'm not gonna go back. So you're talking about agenda item 4?
Yes.
Okay, so I would just say it was my opinion based on reading the packet that if the village board approved moving ahead with the project itself, the easement document and the conveyance document to make it public space, it was inherently being approved.
Yes.
So I don't.
We're good.
Think that I think you're good.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. All right. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.